The rain hammered against the windows like 1,000 desperate fingers seeking shelter. Marcus Chen stood at his kitchen sink, washing his 7-year-old daughter's favorite unicorn plate for what felt like the 100th time that week, when he heard the knock. Not the gentle rap of a neighbor or the confident bang of a delivery person, this was something else. Frantic, desperate, the kind of knock that makes your heart stop before your brain catches up. He glanced at the clock, 11:47 p.m. Lily had been asleep for 2 hours, her small body curled around the stuffed elephant her mother had given her before the cancer took her 8 months ago. Marcus had finally gotten her to sleep without tears tonight, and now someone was pounding on his door like the world was ending. Every instinct screamed at him to ignore it. This was Seattle, and their neighborhood, while not dangerous, wasn't the kind of place where late-night visitors brought good news. He'd worked too hard to build this small sanctuary for him and Lily, to protect her from more pain, to let some stranger's chaos seep through their door. But the knocking came again, more urgent, and he heard something that changed everything, a voice, young and terrified, calling out, "Please. Someone, please help me." Marcus dried his hands on the dish towel and moved toward the door, his contractor's build filling the narrow hallway. He'd installed a solid deadbolt and chain lock after Sarah died, one more way to keep the world at bay. Through the peephole, he saw a figure hunched against the rain, a young woman maybe 19 or 20, her wet hair plastered to her face, looking over her shoulder at the dark street behind her. "Please," she said again, her voice breaking. "He's going to find me." Marcus's hand hovered over the lock. Every news story, every warning, every cautionary tale ran through his mind. This could be a setup. She could be bait for a robbery. He had Lily to think about, Lily who'd already lost so much, who couldn't lose her father too. But then the young woman looked directly at the peephole, and he saw her eyes, wide with genuine terror, mascara running down her cheeks in black rivers, a bruise blooming purple across her left cheekbone. In that moment, she reminded him of Sarah, not in appearance but in the way his late wife had looked at him in the hospital during those final days, silently begging him to save her from something he couldn't fight. He opened the door. The young woman nearly collapsed into his hallway, bringing the smell of rain and fear with her. She was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. "Thank you," she gasped. "Thank you, I'm so sorry, I didn't know where else to go, he took my phone, and I just ran." "Who?" Marcus asked, already closing and locking the door behind her. "Who's after you?" "My boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, Ethan, She wrapped her arms around herself, and Marcus noticed the torn sleeve of her jacket, the angry red marks on her wrist. "He's been following me for 3 days. I tried to break up with him last week, and he said if he couldn't have me, nobody could. Tonight he was waiting outside my work, and when I tried to get away, She broke down then, her whole body convulsing with sobs. Marcus stood awkwardly, this strange woman falling apart in his entryway, wondering what Sarah would have done. Sarah had always been the compassionate one, the one who knew the right words, the right gestures. He was just Marcus, the guy who fixed things with his hands, not his heart. "Daddy." Both of them froze. Lily stood at the top of the stairs, her elephant tucked under one arm, her dark eyes huge in her small face. She wore the purple pajamas with stars that Sarah had bought her, the ones that were already getting too short at the ankles. "It's okay, baby," Marcus said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Go back to bed, I'm just helping someone who needs." "Is she sad like mommy was sad?" Lily asked, and the question hit Marcus like a physical blow. She'd never said that before, never acknowledged that Sarah had been sad at the end, beneath the pain and the medication and the forced smiles. The young woman looked up at Lily, wiping her face with her sleeve. "Yeah," she said, her voice raw. "Yeah, sweetie, I'm pretty sad right now." Lily nodded solemnly, then disappeared into her room. She returned a moment later, carefully making her way down the stairs, and walked straight up to the stranger. She held out her elephant. "Mr. Trunks helped me when mommy went to heaven," she said. "Maybe he can help you too." The young woman took the stuffed animal with trembling hands, and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks, but different tears this time. "Thank you," she whispered. "That's the kindest thing anyone's done for me in a long time." Marcus felt something crack open in his chest, some wall he'd been building brick by brick since Sarah's funeral. He cleared his throat. "Lily, go back to bed. We'll get Mr. Trunks back to you soon." Then, to the young woman, "You should call the police." She shook her head frantically. "He works for a security company. He knows cops. Last time I tried to report him, his buddy made it disappear, said I was being dramatic, that couple's fight. I can't. Okay, Marcus said, a plan forming in his mind. Okay, what's your name? Amy. Amy Torres. Amy, I'm Marcus, and that's Lily. You can stay here tonight. Tomorrow we'll figure out the next steps. But right now, you need to be safe, and you need to breathe. Amy's relief was palpable, but Marcus saw something else flicker across her face, shame. He recognized it because he'd felt it himself in the months after Sarah died, every time someone offered help, every time he had to admit he couldn't do it all alone. I'll take the couch, he said. You can have my room. It's not much, but... A sound from outside cut him off. A car engine, moving slowly down the street, then stopping. The engine idled for a long moment. Amy's face went white. That's him, she breathed. Oh God, that's his truck. He must have seen me come in here. Marcus moved to the window and peered carefully through the curtains. A large black pickup sat across the street, its engine running, windshield wipers beating against the rain. He couldn't see the driver, but he could feel the malevolence radiating from the vehicle, a predator sizing up new territory. Stay away from the windows, Marcus ordered, his voice hardening. He'd done 2 tours in Afghanistan before meeting Sarah, before deciding he wanted to build things instead of clearing buildings. He'd hoped that part of his life was over, but the old instincts came flooding back now, sharp and certain. He pulled out his phone and dialed 911. When the dispatcher answered, he was calm and clear. There's a domestic violence situation. I'm sheltering a woman whose ex-boyfriend is currently parked outside my home in what appears to be surveillance. She has visible injuries and says he threatened her life. We need a unit here immediately. He gave his address twice. The dispatcher assured him someone was on the way. 8-minute ETA. 8 minutes. Marcus had held positions for longer under fire, but this was different. This was his home. His daughter was upstairs. This wasn't some foreign battlefield. This was the life he'd built, the sanctuary he'd promised Lily would always be safe. The truck door opened. A man emerged, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a rain jacket and boots. Even from this distance, Marcus could see the coiled tension in his body, the way he moved with aggressive purpose toward the house. He stopped at the end of Marcus's driveway, staring at the front door. Amy saw him too and made a small, terrified sound. He's going to kick the door in. He's done it before, to his ex. She had to move to another state. He's not getting through this door, Marcus said quietly. The deadbolt he'd installed was commercial grade, the kind used in businesses. The door itself was solid core, reinforced. He'd built this place to be safe. But the man didn't come to the door. Instead, he pulled out his phone, and a moment later, Amy's pocket buzzed. Then buzzed again, and again, text after text, a digital assault to accompany the physical intimidation. Don't look at them, Marcus said. He has my number, Amy said, her voice small. He knows everything about me. My work schedule, my friends' addresses, where my mom lives. He said if I left him, he'd make sure everyone I loved paid for it. The systematic destruction of a person's autonomy, Marcus thought. He'd seen it in the military, the way certain people wielded power. The way they isolated their targets, made them feel helpless. He'd promised himself when Lily was born that he'd teach her she always had power, always had choices, always had worth. Listen to me, Amy, he said, turning to look at her directly. He wants you to feel helpless. That's his power, your fear. But you're not alone anymore. Right now, in this moment, you're safe. And in about 5 minutes, the police are going to arrive, and we're going to make sure this is documented. All of it, but you don't understand. I understand that you survived. You ran. You knocked on a stranger's door in the rain because you chose to live. That took more courage than he'll ever have. Something shifted in Amy's expression. She straightened slightly, clutching Mr. Trunks a little less desperately. Outside, Ethan had moved closer to the house, standing now at the edge of the porch, just beyond the reach of the doorbell camera Marcus had installed. Smart, Marcus thought, knew how to avoid evidence. But not smart enough. Marcus pulled out his phone again and started recording through the window, narrating clearly, male subject, approximately 6'2", 200 pounds, currently trespassing on private property after victim reported threats of violence. Timestamp 12:04 a.m. He'd learned documentation in the service. Everything needed to be recorded, logged, preserved. As if sensing he was being watched, Ethan looked directly at the window. Their eyes met, and Marcus saw the calculation there, the weighing of risks and rewards. Ethan was used to controlling situations, to victims who wouldn't fight back. But Marcus wasn't a victim, and his house wasn't a trap Amy had wandered into, it was a fortress he'd built. Marcus held the man's gaze steadily, his phone still recording, and mouthed a single word, documented. The change was subtle but unmistakable. Ethan's shoulders tightened. He looked at his truck, then back at the house. The sound of approaching sirens began to filter through the rain, still distant but growing closer. Ethan backed away, slowly at first, then faster. He climbed into his truck and drove off just as two police cruisers rounded the corner, their lights painting the wet street in blue and red. The next hour was a blur of statements and photographs and phone calls. The responding officers took Amy's account seriously, documenting her injuries, taking down Ethan's information, explaining about restraining orders and victim advocacy services. One of the officers, a woman named Chen, no relation, she said with a slight smile, gave Amy a card for a shelter that specialized in domestic violence cases, one with security and legal services. "We'll do a welfare check on him tonight," Officer Chen said, "and we'll make sure there's a record of this incident. It's not nothing, what happened here. You did the right thing by running, by asking for help." By the time the police left, it was nearly 2 in the morning. Amy sat on Marcus's couch, wrapped in one of Sarah's old sweaters that Marcus had given her, still clutching Mr. Trunks. She looked exhausted and shell-shocked, but also, Marcus thought, maybe a tiny bit hopeful. "I don't know how to thank you," she said. "You could have ignored the door. Most people would have." Marcus settled into the armchair across from her, feeling the weight of the night settling into his bones. "My wife, Sarah, she used to say that we're all just walking each other home. That we're supposed to help carry each other's burdens, even when it's hard, even when it's scary." He paused, surprised at himself for sharing something so personal. "I haven't been very good at that since she died. I've been so focused on protecting Lily, on keeping our little world small and safe, that I forgot, she needs to see kindness too. She needs to know that when someone knocks, we answer." "Daddy." Lily's voice came from the stairs again. This time she descended fully, rubbing her eyes. "Is the sad lady staying?" "Just for tonight, baby," Marcus said. "Then we're going to help her find somewhere safe." Lily nodded and climbed into Marcus's lap, something she hadn't done in months. She was getting so big, so independent, trying so hard to be brave for him the way he was trying to be brave for her. But right now, she was just his little girl again, seeking comfort. "Mr. Trunks is good at helping," Lily said seriously, looking at Amy. "He helped me remember that mommy loved me even though she's in heaven. Maybe he can help you remember that you're brave." Amy's face crumpled, but she was smiling through the tears. "I think he's already helping," she said. "And so are you. Both of you." The next morning, Marcus made pancakes while Amy made phone calls, to the shelter, to her mother, to a friend who could pack up her apartment. Officer Chen called to say they'd spoken to Ethan and documented everything, and that Amy should come by the station later to file for a restraining order. It wasn't over, these things never were, but it was a start. Before Amy left for the shelter, she knelt down to say goodbye to Lily. "Thank you for lending me Mr. Trunks," she said, returning the elephant carefully. "He helped me a lot. You can come visit him if you get sad again," Lily offered. "And Daddy makes really good hot chocolate." Amy hugged her, and when she stood, she looked at Marcus with something like wonder in her eyes. "You didn't have to do any of this. You have your own grief, your own challenges. But you opened your door anyway. We all have our own storms," Marcus said quietly. "Sometimes the only way through them is together." After Amy left, Marcus and Lily spent the day doing normal things, grocery shopping, a trip to the park despite the lingering rain clouds, an afternoon building a blanket fort in the living room. But something had shifted. The house felt less like a bunker and more like a home again. Lily laughed more freely. Marcus breathed more easily. That night, as he tucked Lily into bed, she said, "Mommy would be proud of you, Daddy." "Yeah," his voice caught. "Why's that, baby?" "Because you're like Mr. Trunks. You help people who are sad and scared. You make them feel safe." Marcus kissed her forehead, blinking back unexpected tears. "You know what, I think Mommy would be proud of you too. You're the bravest, kindest person I know." After she fell asleep, Marcus sat in the living room, looking at the door that had seemed like such a terrible risk just 24 hours ago. He Thought about Sarah, about her belief in the goodness of people, in the importance of community and connection. He thought about Amy, whose courage to knock had been matched only by her courage to leave. He thought about Lily, who instinctively knew that love meant sharing what heals us, even when it's precious. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. For a moment, his heart raced, but then he opened it. "Hi, it's Amy. Officer Chen gave me your number, hope that's okay. I just wanted you to know I'm safe at the shelter, and they're amazing. I start therapy next week and I'm filing for the restraining order tomorrow. I know I have a long road ahead, but for the first time in months, I feel like I might actually make it. Thank you for seeing me, for hearing me, for opening your door. You and Lily saved my life. I won't forget it." Marcus typed back, "Glad you're safe. You saved your own life by having the courage to ask for help. We were just honored to be there. Stay strong. Our door is always open if you need anything." He meant it. For so long, he'd been so focused on what he and Lily had lost that he'd forgotten what they still had to give. Opening that door hadn't weakened their fortress, it had reminded him that the strongest walls are built not to keep everyone out, but to create safe spaces where healing can happen. 3 months later, Marcus received an invitation to Amy's graduation from a paralegal program she'd been too afraid to finish while with Ethan. She'd written a note, "I'm reclaiming my life, one brave moment at a time. Thank you for showing me what courage and kindness look like." Marcus and Lily attended the ceremony, cheering loudly when Amy's name was called. Afterward, Amy introduced them to her mother, her sister, the friends she'd reconnected with, and the advocate from the shelter who'd helped her rebuild her life. She was surrounded by love and support, a whole network of people who'd caught her when she fell. It started with one door opening, Amy told him. One person choosing to help. And that gave me the strength to reach for all the other hands that were waiting to help too. That night, tucking Lily in again, Marcus realized something profound. He'd spent 8 months trying to protect his daughter from more pain, more loss, more grief. But what she'd needed, what they'd both needed, wasn't protection from the world's darkness. It was the reminder that even in darkness, light persists. That even when loss feels unbearable, love remains. That our wounds don't disqualify us from helping others, they teach us how. One knock on the door hadn't fixed Marcus's grief or solved all his problems. Lily still had hard days. He still woke up reaching for someone who wasn't there. But they'd learned something essential. That opening ourselves to others' pain doesn't add to our own burden. It reminds us we're all carrying something, all walking each other home, all just trying to survive our storms and find our way back to the light. The lonely single dad had opened his door for one night, not knowing who he was protecting. And in protecting Amy, he'd discovered that sometimes the person we save is ourselves. That courage isn't the absence of fear but the decision to love anyway, to help anyway, to open the door anyway, even when we're not sure we have anything left to give. Because sometimes, everything changes with one small act of compassion, one moment of connection, one decision to let the world in instead of locking it out. And sometimes, the knock on the door isn't an ending at all, it's a beginning.